This is Anya Camau from Anya Camau Academy.
To finish up this tunic, and since you have stitched all the embellishments on, it's time to change your sewing machine needle. Often change your needle, your work will be easier and the settings of your machine will be improved as well. Here I placed a special presser foot for invisible zipper. Without this foot, it's not possible to sew an invisible zipper correctly, that is, keeping it invisible. If you have bought an invisible zipper, you must get a special presser foot for your machine. This zip has a kind of upside-down look, and its upper part is the part where you can't see the teeth of the zipper. As you see, I placed two pins, one at the top, some 1 cm below the edge, since 1 cm is my seam allowance, and at the bottom, one at the length of the zip that I want to set. The one I have on hand is a little longer, so I will also adjust its length. Below my first pin, I place the slider of this zipper carefully. And then I note precisely the length that I want for this zipper. And you see that it is a little longer, and it often happens that we get this kind of trouble. You can even buy a zipper by the meter with separate sliders, so you need to know how to use it. This small metal clip should normally slide up and down. I place it exactly at the level of a pin that I placed before, and then I simply cut about 2 cm below with scissors. My kitchen scissors, so as not to damage my sewing scissors. This invisible zipper is now ready to be sewn on. Here I place my fabric. I take care to check that everything is set as it should be, in the right direction, so is the good side of my fabric that I fold and that I place along the zipper. I remind you that you won't sew along the teeth, but on the other side of the zipper. When I check by turning my fabric over, I want to have this zipper placed exactly as it should be sewn, without making any mistakes. It's very easy to make mistakes with fabric sides and place this kind of invisible zipper in the wrong way or on the wrong side. I always carefully pin my slider a little below 1 cm from the edge. Let's say 1.2 cm is good. It's rather complex, quite difficult to prick in the zipper ribbon, but there, it's essential that you pin it carefully. I make a last check on my zipper, making sure that everything looks good and I can go on. You see, when I open this invisible zipper, we have the part here that will be sewn on. The invisible zipper works in its own way. That is, you need to unfold the teeth and sew exactly down the teeth. The role of the special presser foot is to unroll the teeth to be able to stitch exactly at the foot of this teeth. And that's why it's absolutely impossible to do it properly if you don't get a special foot. It will therefore be necessary to engage the teeth in one of the grooves underneath the foot. To do that, you have to choose the right groove of the presser foot, so that my needle, which sews through the hole at the center of the foot, goes well sewing the good side of the teeth. Check carefully as I do. It's really useful to check and double check. check that you are going to be on the right side of the zipper and that you are going to stitch at the right position along the teeth. Here, before I fix the zipper, I should have done it a while ago, I close the kind of clip with pliers. Now on this slider, it won't move and I go on sewing with my special foot. But I stop about 2 cm before the end of the teeth of this invisible zipper. You will see why soon. Here is the right side of the zipper that has been fixed. We are on the back and I check again. I want to make sure that everything is correct. This invisible zipper disappears below the fabric and now I take care to pin the other side. It's essential that you sew the invisible zipper before you sew down what remains of the seam in the middle back. It's much easier. Here, I do exactly the same operation. I fold my seam allowance in the middle of the back. That is 1.5 cm there. So I fold my seam allowance on 1.5 cm. I then place it on this invisible zipper, being careful that the 2 edges of the fabric at the neckline match well. I then pin very carefully so that, always checking again, that my fabric edges at the neckline match, that the zip is on the good side and with the right seam allowance. Take your time. There are a lot of things to check. It's not complex, but you could easily make mistakes. It's completely frustrating to undo and redo. I must say I don't like it at all. See that I check very carefully the fabric edges at the top of the zipper, and when I'm sure that I'm on the right side, I pin all along down to about 2 cm above the end of the teeth. Here, everything is pinned on the left side. The right side has already been sewn. Afterwards, I will close what remains of this seam in the middle back with a few hand stitches, which makes no technical issue. I place this zipper under my machine, this time in the other groove of the foot. I open the zip before, of course, so I snap this teeth into the correct groove of the foot and I sew this left part of the zip down to 2 cm above the end of the teeth. It's obvious that the foot cannot go much further since the end of this teeth and the small metal clip will prevent it from going further. Here is this invisible zip sewn on and you can see that I have to close the bottom of this seam in the middle of the back. I do it simply with hand stitches, always with my 1.5 seam allowance. Before I finish this seam in the middle of the back, I pin carefully my seam and I also fold the bottom of the zip, so that I don't sew it by mistake when I sew this back seam, or what remains of this seam, with a standard presser foot and standard straight stitches. Now I've sewn on and then press flat my bottom back seam. And I still have this 2 cm open at the bottom of the zipper to close with some hand stitches. We are now taking care of the sleeves. We will have to close the underarm seam here, starting at the underarm point on each side, back and front. I fold both right sides together, always pin carefully perpendicular to the edge of the fabric. And I sew this seam normally. I will also close the other sleeve in the same way. Then I press open these 2 seams open. You can clearly see the embroidery stabilizer on the wrong side at the bottom of the sleeve. I now turn them both over on the right side. Now an important step is to know which is the right sleeve and which is the left sleeve. For that, it's enough to carefully fold the sleeve flat you see along the underarm seam, and you look at the fabric edges of the armholes. The one that is most prominent is on the back, and the one that is hollow is in the front. So here you have the left sleeve. Do the same check on the other sleeve and you will be sure to avoid any further mistake. I carefully place a pin here at the top of the sleeve, you see, on the fold after I folded my sleeve in half along the underarm seam. This to get the top point of the sleeve. I'll now take the body of the tunic to fix the corresponding sleeve. So it's the left sleeve. This sleeve will be inserted inside the body. Thus, I set the body of the tunic on the wrong side, and then I put inside the left sleeve, turned on its right side instead. I then get both pieces right side, again right size, which is a classic in sewing. I start by matching my 2 underarm points after these 2 seams have been pressed flat, seam above seam, and then a pin is enough to get it fixed. I then fix the seams allowances so that they don't move when I go on sewing them. I also make my pin, the one I've set at the top point of the sleeve, to match with the shoulder seam, which has been pressed flat as well. Now I have to distribute the fabric all around the armhole, although it seems that there's too much fabric around the sleeve compared with the armhole seam conference. It's because the sleeve has a convex profile and is fixed on the armhole circumference, which has a concave profile. There is therefore apparently too much fabric on the sleeve at the edge of the fabric, but there is not 1 centimeter inside where I'm going to sew now. There I advise you to set only 1 centimeter of seams allowance on the sleeve head as well as for the armhole, and not more, as it would become truly difficult to handle, almost impossible. I pin around very carefully so that the edge of the sleeve fabric, the one which seems to be too large, and meanwhile I can see that the fabric sets smoothly in place 1 centimeter inside. That is where I'm going to stitch without making any gather. It seems quite odd at first, but it eventually goes up well, you see, Zoom with your screen if you can, so you can see that here my sleeve seems to make lots of gathers, but 1 centimeter inside the fabric edge it becomes flat and it sets well. It is this apparently extra volume of fabric that will give to the sleeve a pretty curve and give the impression that the sleeve is fixed over the garment. This is very important for all sleeves and even more so for jacket sleeves. To finish up the neckline, I take the inside piece, the binding that I've cut and overlocked before. First, I set a pin at the middle of its neckline simply by folding this piece in half, and I also set a pin on each side to mark my seam allowance. I'm going to pin these last two first so they match the shoulder seam, and do the same thing on the other side. It's very important to pin accurately. It's not difficult, but you have to be careful. In the middle, I match my pin with the mid-neckline of the body. The two right sides are exactly on top of each other. I carefully pin all around this front neckline, and I'm going to stitch from one shoulder to the other. I set there 1 centimeter of seam allowance as well. Remind that you must stop when you cross the shoulder seam. Here you see that I set a lot of pins to be sure that nothing is moving, to be able to gently sew and make a beautiful curve. As always, I sew over my pins. Here this seam is done, and we can see how the binding comes when folded over the tunic neckline inside the garment to make a very clean and neat neckline. On both pieces of the back neckline inside the garment, to make a very clean and neat neckline, I will simply set a bias to make a neat curve. I slightly round this bias with my iron so that it matches the neck curve, you see the neckline at the back. And I'm going to sew this bias along this back neckline. I sew in the bias fold since the bias has already folded twice on itself. Always take your time to pin carefully. You will save a lot of time at the end, since it will save you from having to start over several times. Here I'm therefore going to pin along, leaving about 1 centimeter of bias beyond the middle of the back to be able to fold it back on itself and have a clean result. I can stitch with my machine until the end, since the teeth of my invisible zipper start lower than my seam allowance. Here I have my binding inside the front and my bias on both sides of my back neckline. I'm just going to place them one on top of the other. They come to place themselves well on top of each other. And I make a few top stitches to fix the bias on the front binding. This is done just with a small top stitch at about 1 or 2 mm. Before I fold everything over, the two bias pieces and the binding, of course I notch. You must always notch every curvy seam allowance. I then ironed to fold all over and to be able to get a very neat line before I fold it inside. To keep the seam allowances inside and avoid them to set out, I will make a stay stitch along the neckline. That is to say, I will stitch along the bias and the binding at 2 mm, stitching the seam allowances at the same time. The seam allowances will therefore be joined with these biases and this binding. I then fold everything inward and I fix the edges of my binding, as you see, along my shoulder seam by hand sewing or by a stitch over the shoulder. And here we can see the top stitch that I made earlier. Just fold the edges of the bias at middle back, a few stitches by hand, and this neckline is finished. On the other hand, this binding is quite large and I wish to fix it so that it does not move and does not make folds inside the garment when I wear it. I already set 2 or 3 pins so that it remains flat inside the garment. As I want to make an invisible fixing, I'm going to use the embroidery stabilizer below. Here I check that my neckline comes out well, and I use my embroidery stabilizer to avoid pricking my fabric when I hand stitch just at 3 different spots to keep this binding from moving inside. Here, on the same way, you have a binding at the bottom of the tunic, the central piece and 2 back pieces. I'm very careful to place all right side upon right side to sew together the central piece and the 2 back pieces, simply with a straight stitch. Then I also join the 2 pieces of the back. I close my cuff bindings in the same way, just folding them up right side upon right side. Don't worry about left and right because they are symmetrical. Here is the binding ready to be fixed at the bottom of the tunic. It comes like a ring. I pressed flat all my seams open. I close my sleeve binding as well and I press the seams open. Here are both ready to be fixed on. These 3 parts are now ready to finish up your tunic at the hem and bottom of the sleeves. I start by sewing the binding ring, this large piece that comes at the bottom of the tunic, taking care to match well with the side seams and the back seam. I place a few pins when crossing the seams and then all around. I'm just going to sew with straight stitches. Here my seam allowance is just 1 cm. Since there are bindings, there's no need to set more. I double check that all my seams match well and that I'm not misplacing the ups and downs of the bindings. For the sleeves, I make the same operation. I pin my binding right side upon right side. Pin it carefully and I check that once it's sewn on, I get my sleeve hem with its binding set properly and with the right side visible inside. Here, I've sewn on this binding at the bottom of the tunic. I press the binding over the seam allowance so that everything is on the seam allowance side of the seam, and I top stitched 2 mm inside all around and at the bottom of the sleeves as well, so that all seam allowances are joined with the bindings and not with the body of the tunic or with the sleeve. Thereafter, all will be folded and I will get very neat edges. Here the tunic is finished. We can see the body edges and the bottom of the sleeve edges too. Everything is finished. This binding has been pinned and I'm just going to make a few hand stitches here or there at the top of this binding, pricking under the beads. So I will make my stitches below the beads and fix the binding in an invisible way and avoid a seam which would be absolutely ugly. I actually use the beads which are at the top of the embellishment to prick and be able to fix this binding. If ever you want to stitch where there's no bead, well, just add one and the job is done.